Hi, everybody. This chat is on the importance of gray literature in conservation, taking the case study of Polylepis in northwest Argentina. Polylepis is a genus that grows on the highest altitude in the world, sometimes above the continuous tree line in the grasslands, and sometimes it forms this continuous tree line. It's of the Rosacea family. The fruit is a small achene, as you can see in the picture. And this genus is easily to recognize because the bark has several fine reddish sheets on it, and the branches are very curly. So, what is known on this genus in the northwest of Argentina, a hotspot for this genus? Well, in northwest Argentina, we have 5 species. If we consider the total of species, which is still in discussion as of 45, then that means that we have 11% of all the species present in northwest Argentina. They are distributed as follows. So we have 2 species in dry environments, Polylepis tarapacana and Polylepis tomentella. And then we have 3 species in the humid environments, so Polylepis australis, Christagalli, and Hieronymi. Polylepis Christagalli is only present in a very reduced area in Salta and Jujuy provinces. So if you see the altitudinal gradient, you can see that Tarapacana grows at the highest altitudes, and then followed by Tomentella, and then on lower altitudes we have Australis and Hieronymi, and also Christagalli. Um, so as I said, dry environments is Puna and High Andes. These are 2 ecoregions in northwest Argentina where we can find these 2 species. Humid environments represented by 3 species, also called Tucuman Bolivian forests or jungas, Austral jungas. Their conservation status is vulnerable for the species of the humid environments and near threatened for Tomentella and Tarapacana. Australis is not yet evaluated, but we're working on that. So we started this work with the premise that there is a limitation on scientific publications because there are investigators or professors or other persons that don't know how to write a scientific article or they don't have the time to do it. So our goal was to compile the information, published information, but also gray public information on the genus Polylepis in northwestern Argentina and to interpret or resume this information from a conservation point of view. So, what methods did we use? First, we checked the library of the Jujuy University. Then we checked the bibliography of each of those species encountered. We did also an online search. We used the terms Polylepis, Northwest Argentina, in Spanish and in English, using also the common names of these species. Then we classified all the material according to species, year, study site, and topics, considering the topics mentioned in the slides: dendrochronology, ethnobiology, archaeology, genetics, and so on. So, what do we get so far? If we see the number of publications a long time, we can clearly see that in the beginning, there was very few publications. The first one was in the 1951, which was a work of Cabrera, which is a famous biogeographist in Argentina. And finally, since the 2017, 19, and until today, we can see that there are a lot of more information published. These peaks I mention here are peaks in publications that coincide with the years of Congress. The genus Polylepis has the luck that each more or less 6, 5, then 3 years, there is a congress on ecology and conservation of Polylepis. So the first result we can see is that these congresses are very important for the publications on the genus. Then other important events, but focused on Northwest Argentina. So the genus was described in the 18th century, but it was not until 1911 that the 5 species present in Northwest Argentina were described. At this moment, Bitter, which is the author of the of some of the species present, did mention for Northwest Argentina, Polylepis australis, Polylepis hieronymi, and Polylepis tomentella. So only 3 of the 5 species present. We had to wait until 1999 for the first citation on Tarapacana and 2001 for the first citation on Cristagalli. Then, in 2007, we had an important workshop on the ecology and conservation of Polylepis that also helped to increase the information and to share the information on this genus in Northwest Argentina. In 2016, we had the presentation of the International Congress on Ecology and Conservation in Northwest Argentina. So that's why after that, what I call the boom of Polylepis. So a lot of articles being published. If we check on the topics, we can see that mostly the information available is on ecology and physiology. Then there is a lot of information that only mentions the species, and then followed by distribution, works on distribution. All the other topics are very poorly represented. We also see that on outreach, there is a small amount available. Nevertheless, the fact that the species is so many times mentioned, for example, to describe an ecoregion or something like that, that indicates us that the species is taken into account by a lot of people, and that it has an attractive in because that is logic, because it's the only species, the 3 species that grows at such a high altitude. If we check per species, we can see that Tomentella is the most studied species that coincides with its distribution in Northwest Argentina, followed by Australis, followed by Tarapacana. This is not strange, as also Tarapacana and Australis are the most studied species on the regional level also. Then Hieronymi and Cristagalli are very poorly studied, and this is also related to the late discoverment of Cristagalli in Northwest Argentina, and its presence only in 2 locations. All these studies indicate as most important threats fire, intentional fire, and exotic herbivores that are grazing on these Polylepis hieronymi forests, in this case, hieronymi. Then we also found regional differences between Northwest Argentina and, for example, Cordoba, which is southernmost in Argentina. We can see that Cuyckens et al. Found with an increase in altitude, a decrease in germination power. This was opposite to what was found by Marcora et al. Also, Henson found that the stands further north had less genetic diversity within the population and greater genetic differentiation between populations than the central and more southern stands. So what we can see is that this species has local adaptations. For Polylepis tomentella, we also found differences with a study done in Bolivia by Domic et al. That indicates that there is a relation between seed mass and germination, which is also a very common relation cited in literature, but what was not found for Tomentela in northwest Argentina. So, in conclusion, most of the studies in northwest Argentina are done in the Jujuy province. There is a lack of basic knowledge. For example, the structure of these forests is not known. The relationship with mining is mentioned a lot, but is not totally clear. Its distribution is retracting in Argentina, in northwest Argentina, and the environments, the stands that are left are degraded, and there is a lack of state policies. For example, in one protected provincial area, which name is Dala, the forests are in the worst conservation status. Many mentions and popular articles indicate that the species is charismatic. The regional differences I've already mentioned, an underrepresentation of Polylepis christagalli and Hieronymi, and also we encountered identification problems. For example, Racemosa and Incana were mentioned but are not present in northwest Argentina, and also due to the late citation of Tarapacana, some studies confounded Tomentela with Tarapacana. Finally, the lack of categorization for Polylepis australis is worrisome, as this does not help us to know what its status is. We did not find any experimental studies, so we recommend to increase experimental studies in northwest Argentina. These studies are in general expensive, so we also suggest that there should be more resources available to study and conserve these species in northwest Argentina. Well, thank you very much for your attention. And if you want more information, you can follow us on Facebook or Instagram.